Hello everybody, welcome to Accounting 1B or Financial Accounting 2, same thing, for fall of 2017 at Foothill College. My name is Jose Nava. I will be your instructor for the rest over the next 12 weeks. They will go fast. In this video, I am going to attempt to very briefly take you through a little tour of Canvas, the related website that we use for both taking exams and taking quizzes and doing homework, and also other resources that are offered. That site is called MyLab, or MAL, sometimes I call it. And if you've taken Accounting 1A at Foothill previously, then you know what that is because you probably already also used that same tool. So we'll do that. We'll quickly go over Canvas, how I set it up, and also MyLab, and then we'll go and do a few other things rather quickly, so that we can actually then just move on to the content. Okay, as you can see here, we're in the home page of your Canvas site, and as usual, you have some very standard features such as announcements, syllabus, grades, MyLab, mastering, modules, and the other ones that are there. At the moment we're not really using for the class. You can use it for yourself if you wish, but again, we're not using it for the class. In the middle here, I call this the central panel. I list some of the tasks that you are to complete for each week. In this case, as you can see, there are two sort of different sets of tasks. I call it Module 0, which basically is your orientation tasks, as well as your Week 1 deliverables. In this case, it covers Chapter 10. And only the first half of Chapter 10, because the next week, in week number 2, we'll be dealing with the second part of Chapter 10. Now, all of the assignments for each sets of tasks are packaged in modules, and as you can see here, there's a link to module 0 or module week 0, and then below here there's a link to module week 1, so you can go to any of those at any time and then complete those tasks under each of those modules. Now, in this case, I also gave you some detail for each of the modules, and that way you know what to expect when you get into the modules themselves. If I go below, you see that you also have another section here that sort of is just for fun, or at times I do have something that is important that I place here for you to review, and if it's important, I will announce it. On the right side is more interesting, or more important, I think, because it gives you a nice view of the whole quarter, how it's set up. So as you can see, Week 0 orientation, Week 1 and 2 Chapter 10, and so on. Gives you also when is the exams. The exam will be at the end of Week 4, and also exam 2 will be at I think it's the end of Week 10. I forget exactly. And then this will be a project in the final. And you'll see in more detail about these items in the syllabus themselves. Now, let's move on to the Week 0 tasks, because that actually gives you a lot more detail about what to expect for your orientation. So here's the pages. You need to follow them in sequence, because otherwise you cannot move on, you cannot advance. So let's begin at the beginning, and in this case I'm going to go into this page here. I'm using something called Rise. I just started to use this just recently, so I'm kind of new, but it's actually kind of a nice way to package some information. So I'm doing that now. Now I can actually play it from here if I wanted to, or I can just click on this link on top in each case when there's a Rise presentation, and go over to a brand new page that then uses the whole screen to display the content. So it's easier to travel to navigate. So I can either start course here, or I can go to any of the sections in the lesson as I need. So I'm going to just go there. So here it is. Also, if I don't want to see this navigation panel on the side, I can just click on this and I have the whole screen. And so there are different types of pages that I use to present information using Rise. And in this case, this is a walkthrough or a tour of our Canvas setup. I already gave you some of that anyway. But if you wanted to get a little, a little review at some point, or you wanted to actually just be more thorough than I've been already, you can go to each of these buttons and explains the item. So, for example, if I go to announcements, you'll get this. And at times, I do also do a little audio here, so I'm going to just let it play for a second. Announcements are my way to keep you informed of what's going on in the class. It's one way. So as you can see, it gives you sort of the same information that I gave you before, but in a little more detail. And you should go through these and actually make sure that you understand what's going on. And otherwise, you get lost, and then it makes things much more difficult for everybody, including yourselves. So make sure you do go through each of these. And then if I keep going down, I can move on to part 2 of the orientation. This one gives you a little detail about what I just told you previously. This one is a little, you don't need to do it again because we did it already. So there's not much new here. Let's move on to the next part here. Here's the syllabus itself. As you know, you need to look at the syllabus. That's very important to do. Here's section 1 of the syllabus. It's basically an image of the first page of the syllabus, the top portion. Then there's also the image of the outline section. Again, this is exactly what you will see in your own syllabus once you go and review it. But I have some notes here that you should be coming to review. And so, because there's some things that you will not understand unless you go and look at these notes right here. So here's the information about textbook in these 2 tabs. Keep moving to the right. Here's the communication section of the syllabus. Here's part 2 of that. Here's a description of the assignments, part 1 and part 2. Keep going. Grading, as you know, you want to learn about those components because you want to know how to approach the class, and so you learn what these are, how they are weighted. And then here's the grading scale. As you know, you have a 93 and above, you have an A. Anything between 90 and 92.99, or actually anything between 90 and 93 would be an A minus, and so on. Make sure you read this. It's actually quite important. You have here some course policies. Here's some things about other resources you might need for the class. Here's the class calendar setup, additional notes, and then something about responsibilities and philosophy. So make sure you read both the syllabus itself and then come back to this presentation here and read a little bit about my notes. And over time, I will be adding, I will be adding more notes to these tabs, so it will become more important to come in and re-review if it's needed. Then you move on to the next section of this orientation, and here is a view of the grades or the gradebook inside of Canvas. And again, I have a little bit of explanation here what this is, and about how to convert base scores or raw scores into weighted scores. I keep moving to the next part of the orientation, and here's this piece that relates to how to register into MyLab. As I mentioned before, you will be using MyLab for homework, exams, and other things. So you need to register, and here's the process that you will be following to actually register into the right section. Now, the thing that I will highlight here is that if you don't have, or if you haven't had a class before that uses MyLab, you will need to create an account and then come back and either you already have the access code that came with the book that you purchased from the bookstore at Foothill, or if you don't use that, if you don't want to use those options, you have 2 more options here to purchase that bundle, both the textbook and the access code to MyLab. And so you have this one here, the second choice. If you look at syllabus, it will give you 3 choices. The first one is the bookstore choice, which is probably the best. Second one is this one here that has both MyLab and the e-text. There's no printed book. And then there's another third section here for just the access and no textbook. So at times, some people already have the textbook for whatever reason, and they only need access to my accounting lab. So this will be a better option for them. Finally, if you don't have money right away to buy your access code and your textbook, there's always this 14-day window that you can access the tool, MyLab, and basically get all you need from that access, and so you won't be able to miss any deliverable throughout the first 2 weeks. And but you have to upgrade by the end of those 14 days. So that's actually that piece, and go and view that. Let's see. Here's a tour of MyLab itself. So it gives you the navigation panel, gives you how the assignments page looks like. Here's the e-text, the important multimedia library, which is quite nice. It gives you a lot of very good resources to actually review and learn material, in addition to the module stuff that I will be putting there. You need to learn this piece very, very well. Homework, what it's going to be looking like. This actually gives you a screenshot of the assigned homework per the syllabus, actually. And when you come to MyLab, you will be getting the very same problems. That's when you say here, it says here similar to, because they're the same problems but with different numbers. So if you review the modules, answer keys, and some of my own presentations on each of those homework items, you will learn how to solve them. But when you come here to MyLab to actually take the homework or the tests, well, actually, let's talk about the homework. If you look at the homework, you will see the same items, but it will be different numbers. But by that point, you know how to actually solve them. And there will be something else on top here for each of those items that you might want to access each time. If you still need more help in learning how to solve each of these problems, you have these two things that are really, really nice to use. Help me solve this, and Demo Docs examples. So go ahead and explore that. And then finally, here's my little module, or my little tour of the modules. So this is a sample module, actually. This comes from my accounting 1. Oh, this is actually my accounting 1B class from a previous, from the summer. And so it's similar setup. And so I just say there's an overview section. There is an attendance feature here that you need to submit every Tuesday or every week for part of your grade. There's also my lecture notes that are based on RISE, a similar presentation tool as what you're using, as what you're seeing here for this orientation. There's also a section for your own discussion postings, which is part of your required work. Very simple, actually, it's not that hard, so read about it. But you will use these threads here to be able to do that. Then you have this RC and this HW. So these are the quizzes. Here's the homework that you come to once you're ready to take the reading check, the quiz, or the homework. Notice that each of these two items, or these types of items, you can take multiple times and basically a limited time. So you can always come back and relearn it and retake it until up to the deadline. And you also can have access to answer keys here, as I said before. Then you have some other items here at the bottom where it basically prepares you for the following week or the following tasks. So that's the overall sort of tour of the. Let me go back to here. So now you've actually completed that first part, the orientation here, and you can move on to these two if you need it. This is just optional if you want a little more detail on that. You have to submit the certification here that tells me that you actually completed the whole review thoroughly of the items, the Canvas site, the MyLab, the syllabus, the class calendar, policies, and so on and so on. You can also post, if you keep going, you're going to post your own brief bio right there. And that's it. I mean, at the end, you also have a couple of discussion boards where you can actually use to ask questions about the orientation here. And then throughout the whole quarter, here you can use the virtual office hours discussion thread to ask me questions about the content. And then you move on to the first module for the class. Enjoy!